Ninja! Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for about an hour. Yesterday, after Matt's show, I laid down to cuddle with this little fuzzy puppy, and I woke up, I don't know, much later than the show ended. So we didn't have a show yesterday, but I blame that on Matt for being boring and having a boring show, which made me sleepy, and then that little puppy for being fuzzy and making me fall asleep. So it wasn't my fault, but we didn't have a show yesterday. Also,
I'm hearing excuses. I'm not hearing reasons.
Those are excuses. And I had my phone at like 4% battery. So when I passed out, it just died. And then if anybody did try, I don't think anybody even tried to text me, but if they would have, it wouldn't even work. Anyhow, we're here tonight and got Gary jumping in from Kansas. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for the invite.
And then we got Dano jumping in from Illinois.
Glad to be here.
There's links out to others out there. If people are interested, let us know on the Gun Channel side. Gun Channels is a community we built. Going on 6 years now. It is gunchannels.com, and it's a place for people to hang out and chat about firearms. It's a place to collaborate with others if you're creating content. It's a place to experience the behind the scenes and the how-tos if you're either creating or interested in what it's like for people that are creating content. And then, of course, a place for live shows like this one, and a place for people to share photographs and links to news. And when necessary, we can all pull in the same direction and get as much word out there when we're trying to either defend or petition something for our Second Amendment. So we simulcast the shows there every night, and we're watching the chat over there. See Keeson's out there tonight. OG Gun Channels people. And then we are on the other platform out there with a big red rectangle, big white triangle inside of it, and they hate our guns, they hate our property, they hate laws that we like. You can be the judge if they like us or not. But we do make this an exercise in interactive media, so if you're out there watching, be part of the conversation. And tonight is episode 758. So we've been doing this show for a while. It is Tuesday, so we usually talk about the Second Amendment, and I like to look back at history. So we're going to look at a couple of things that are anniversaries, I guess, today. And one is the the anniversary of the birth of Dragunov, which is kind of neat. And then it's also the anniversary of the Tiahrt Amendment. And I guess that can be our 2A part of the show. So when I say Tiahrt Amendment, do either of you guys know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea.
Gary?
He's dribbling down his chin right now.
Actually, I was on another browser tab looking it up. I know who Todd Tiahrt was because he was a representative from the state of Kansas, so that name is familiar with me. And I know we've talked about it before. Let's see. Prohibits the National Tracing Center of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives from releasing information from its firearms trace database to anyone other than a law enforcement agency or prosecutor.
In connection with the criminal investigation. So basically the Tiahrt Amendment is what stops do-gooders, antis, terrorists, just somebody who's willing to exploit people's personal information. It stops people from being able to do a FOIA, right? Freedom of Information request on the information that's obtained through the National Tracing Center, which is NICS, right? So when NICS or when the ATF gather data. That data is now protected thanks to the Tiahrt Amendment from searches unless it's government or federal law enforcement or local law enforcement on a case, or I guess the equivalent criminal investigators in the justice system. But unless you're actually involved in an ongoing case, no one has access to the information obtained by NICS and the ATF and the records the ATF keeps on, let's say, crime information for which gun shops are the ones the criminals use, or which ones have the most infractions. That kind of database that isn't available unless you're law enforcement actively working on a case.
So that would be the law that would protect all the select fire automatic machine gun owners out there, legal, from someone doing a FOIA request for saying, I want a list of everyone in the United States that has these items registered.
Not really, because there's no registry of individuals. We don't register individuals for their possession of a machine gun. We register the machine gun. So someone could do a FOIA potentially and say, I'd like to know every firearm that's registered, and they would, but I don't know if that necessarily comes right along with their personal information. In other words, this tax stamps, which have your personal information on it, is in a file cabinet somewhere, and your tax stamp has a number on it. What the Freedom of Information Act would probably hand over would be the database with all the serial numbers on it. So it would say, like, this is a suppressor. I don't know how much of that data is in the spreadsheet.
Right. Yeah, because, without a name and an address at the time that it was applied, that registry doesn't do the law enforcement any good.
It's not for that, but that's, yeah, but the register, the person's name would be
Expunged?
No, it wouldn't be on there because of the 1976 Privacy Act, I believe. So, or something's equivalent, or I'm not a lawyer, but I believe that there was an act sometime after the 60s that prohibited the government from keeping records and stuff. That's one of the reasons the 4473's information is thrown away after 24 hours, and that, well, at least the NICS information is thrown away after 24 hours, and the 4473's get destroyed at some amount of time, and the 4473's are on paper, and a lot of that paperwork is done through paper still because they're not allowed to put it on computer, because it would allow a government that people wanted back in 1970s already to avoid. So they saw the potential of databases and what the Nazis did with computers in World War II, and their ability to exterminate, almost completely exterminate a race, right? An ethnicity or a religion, or whatever you want to call Jews. So Nazis were able to do that in large part due to technology and computers and keeping track of everybody. So I think even back then, people were like, hey, computers are getting even better at this. And we definitely don't want this government doing what other governments have tried. But I believe that kind of ties in with this one. So when you're talking the NFA registry, I don't think they can put all the information from the tax stamp onto the database because of that Privacy Act. But I could be wrong. I'm trying to piece all this together, and as much as I'd like to, it's, I don't have ultimate time to do this, and it's tough to keep track of even if I did. So I try to keep track of it over on Minuteman University's pages over there. But this is one that it'd be great to talk to, like Eric from Florida Carry, or somebody who's like actually a lawyer and can give us more information. I don't know if this is the kind of thing like all lawyers get taught, because it's like part of the necessary knowledge of everybody, or if this is like specific to certain types of lawyers or certain types of interests or something.
So Seven Wonders is wanting to know, do you think they actually destroy the 4473s?
4473s get destroyed all the time when gun shops burn down, because they're on pieces of paper. So yes, they do get destroyed. Do they get stolen or destroyed in like water and other problems or other ways? Yes. does, what's this? A gun shop has to keep them for 20 years, and then they have to turn them over when they go out of business. So we've been having to keep 4473 since 1968. Technically, I think if I'm doing it right here, if a gun shop was in business in 68 when they had to start doing the 4473s, and then 20 years later would have been 88, they could have then thrown away 20-year-old records in 1988, and they could have started throwing those away, and that would have been 40 years ago almost.
If I can butt in just for a second, I may be confusing the issues. I just want to verify, because the 4473 is separate from the registry book, which is what you're discussing now. The
Yes.
single piece of paper gets destroyed within 24 hours, supposedly.
No. The information at NICS gets thrown away every 24 hours. So when the gun shop, you go into a gun shop and you're going to buy a gun, they give you a piece of paper called 4473. You fill it out. On the front are the 10 questions from the 1968 Gun Control Act that say, are you a felon? Are you a domestic abuser? Do you, whatever all those 10 questions are, right? You answer all those, and on the back you sign it, and then the gun shop calls in to NICS, the FBI's call center, wherever the hell it is. And then you're calling the gun shop in most states, or in certain states where they have extra infringements, you call into the state, and then the state calls into NICS on your behalf. Mm-hmm. So most states, though, the gun shop directly calls into NICS. They get an operator. They say, blah, blah, blah about what kind of gun, and some information off the front of the thing about the person. And then the operator does a quick check, and then they say proceed, delay, or denied. And then thanks, and then you hang up. So now the 4473, you proceed however in the 3 directions there, right? On the other end of the phone, NICS hangs up, and 24 hours from that phone call, their database should be deleted. Do they do that? I've heard no. I've heard from people who allege to be agents that have retired or quit working there or whatever, who are in the know, that say no. But I don't know. They don't say no like because there's an evil plot. They just say no because people don't monitor it, and nobody makes them, so nobody does it. Like, it's just one of those things that just doesn't get done, but it probably should be getting done.
It's fallen into disrepair. Nobody cares about it. No, they just let it be.
Correct. And then the 4473 part of it, though, has, we've looked at us up before, but I'm pretty sure it's 20 years. So the gun shop, as part of their FFL, is required to keep that for 20 years. And then guy
how
is
is that separate from the book they keep then?
Book is a totally separate thing. So guy that's saying who pays the house, the physical form. So 4473s are like 1, 2, 3, or 4 pages, depending on which years you're looking at, because they change every once in a while. But it's usually 3 or 4 pages. And that piece of paper, it's the task of the gun shop. So part of their obligation by having the license to do business is to house those 4473s, and they have to keep them for 20 years. Now, if they go out of business, they have to give them back to the ATF, or give them to the ATF. And then the ATF has them in a giant metal, like, what are those going to call, shipping containers. And episode like 417, we were live on location at those shipping containers in West Virginia at the ATF headquarters. I was standing out in front. Oro, we tried to get Oro to pee on him. Tried to get him to pee on that little strip of grass right there. He wouldn't do it. But yeah, we spent the show sitting in the van with the doors open, looking at those shipping containers where everybody's 4473s eventually go. So that's kind of neat, because we were doing some CSI work on the first pictures we ever saw of those cargo containers, and then the cargo containers in the state that I saw them in when we were there was like the difference between like 4 or something in the first picture and like 13 in the second picture. So quite a few shops had closed down and sacrificed their 4473s to the ATF, and they've needed to start a whole bunch of new cargo containers. But anyway, so who's tasked with housing them? The FFLs while they're in business, and then once they're not in business, the ATF, and then ultimately us, because we're paying for those cargo containers, obviously.
And I just did some reading on it. If there's ever a denied transaction, they still have to keep the form for 5 years.
Oh, really? I didn't know there was a difference between one or the other. But yeah, you put everything in every 4473 is kept. If it's denied or not, it's kept.
Right. I'm just looking at the Federal Register as far as the requirements. It's 20 years if there was actually a transaction, but if it's denied, then the requirement is only 5 years.
So as far as that first question with 4473, so let's say you spilled out a 4473 in 1968, and then in 1988, that gun shop, I believe, could have then decided to throw away their 1968 4473s if they thought your privacy was important and they got sick of having extraneous papers laying around to be a fire hazard in their gun shop. They may have started throwing those away, and if that's the case, they could have started throwing those away 40 years ago in 1988. So, right, is that 40 years till 2018? So, no, yeah, it is 40 years, right? So that means that
50 years.
50 years? No, 88, 98, 40 years, right?
68 to now is 51 years.
No, but in 88 is when they could have started throwing away the 68 ones.
Okay.
I'm saying for 40 years they've been able to throw them away. So if some gun shop has been in business since 1968, it's possible that they've been able to throw away 40 years worth of 4473s. But they would still have 4473s from 2008. Correct? No, 1998.
1998, yeah.
So they'll start throwing away their 1997 ones now, or whatever, their 1998 ones now. So it's potential that some 4473s for those amount of guns have been thrown away by those gun shops. However, most gun shops ain't in business for 20 years, so that means that they start doing business, and if they're in business anything less than 20 years, every single 4473 is with the government. And if they were in business for 23 years, what's the odds that they threw away 3 years worth of 4473s? Either liability or just laziness. Unless they're really starving for space, they probably didn't bother to throw away like 2 little boxes of 4473s. So, depending how busy the store was in their first years or whatever, I bet you stores that are in business 25 years and go out of business and 25 years worth of 4473s.
Can I just ask a follow-on question here?
Sure.
Let's say, Joe Bob has a gun store and he's been in business for many years, but he also does, paperwork, administrative things out of his home in relation as part of the business. He may even use one of his rooms as his literal, I'm doing air quotes, office for tax purposes. So that's part of the business. Can he indeed, since it's paperwork and not actual firearms, store those 4473s in his office?
No, I don't think so. I think they have to be stored on premises, and there's some regulation, they have to be like fireproof and stuff. They have to like due diligence to make sure they're not going to get hurt. But I'm pretty sure they have to be there.
Okay, so wherever the building of where the firearms are at is where the paperwork must also be.
Yeah. Now I don't know if they have like 6 locations in town. I suspect though you'll leave them in the office where the guns were.
The reason I'm going to scale this question up is you go to the chain stores like Walmart, just as an example, who sells guns throughout the United States. I would be surprised if each Walmart had a special area in each store that they held 4473s versus sending them to corporate or something like that.
Oh, I'm almost positive they keep them in the store and don't send them to corporate.
Oh, okay.
Because what would happen if the ATF came in and said, we're auditing you? Give us all your 4473s. They're not gonna, that's not in compliance if they go, oh, well, let's get them from corporate. It'll just be a minute till we get them from Arkansas. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they're in a folder somewhere. And I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine. Do you think big box stores sell a lot of guns? Or, I mean, they must sell a lot of guns, I guess.
It's because of the lack of control. Assistant managers and managers come and go in retail. That's just kind of the state of the industry. But because you need those records basically for the lifetime of the store, at least corporate has a better chance of, at least if they're stored in one location, of maintaining better control. Versus we got 2,000 locations.
Yeah, but they don't sell guns at everyone. But no, I don't think you're allowed to. I've never heard of the 4473s being off-site, ever. So I'd be surprised if they weren't in a Walmart. They'd probably know that, though. They've been guns in Walmart since the beginning, so they probably just have a place in the office where they keep things like that. But Seven Wonders is saying they only sell BB guns and air guns. Lots and lots and lots of Walmart sell guns. Yeah. I'd say the majority sell guns at the Walmarts I've been to.
I mean, in my area, they've never sold guns, but I go to Wisconsin or I go to Southern Illinois, and the Walmarts all carry guns.
Walmarts in Vegas that sell guns. I'd have to think. I've been to quite a few of the Walmarts there too, though. But I don't always go look and see if they got guns. I mean, sometimes if I walk past there, they got dog food or something, I notice, but always look. And there's a lot of them where it's just a couple of shotguns, so it's kind of, you know, they almost look like BB guns or something. They don't make a big elaborate thing. And nowadays, they're down to little turnstile things, so if you miss them, you know, it's easy to miss them.
Yep.
So you're talking about the book, though. That's separate. So as a gun shop takes a gun in, takes possession of a gun, then it goes into a bound book. And then, you know, that's their, what do you call it, like their, what's the word for it? Anyway, it's like their paperwork or whatever. So it'll be, there's a word I'm missing here. But anyway, whenever they get the gun in, it'll have who the gun came from and all that. And then whenever it goes out, it'll have when the gun went out. And that has to stay with the shop also.
So its function is simply all inventory.
Yes,
come in and all inventory that's left and the particulars thereof.
Ledger, yeah, or an inventory book. That's what it is, really. And that's just to make audit. So when they come in and audit, they can cross-reference it all. But anyway, that's different than a 4473 because there's guns in there that'll never touch a 4473 potentially.
Yeah, the 4473, other than pistol, rifle, or shotgun, doesn't really say what was bought.
Well, that too, but it's also like if they get a gun and then sell it to another shop, there's no 4473. So those just the book will cover more guns than the 4473 will touch. Plus, every gun that hasn't been sold in the shop doesn't have a 4473 with it. So.
Well, that brings up another interesting question. If let's say you have a gun shop and I have a gun shop, and we both are FFLs, we both do retail, what sort of paperwork do we need to do?
None.
If I want to take one of
just
yours,
my book into your book, that's all.
Okay, I don't need a piece of paperwork. I'm not saying government approved, but it's kind of like a bill of sale.
Just they'll have a bill of sale, but any business will have any bill of sale for anything. But just that, no government stipulation. Just out of my book. Your book.
You would log it out of your book, and I would log it into mine.
Yep. Now, if it was an NFA item, we would read it or something to each other. Like there's one of the forms that we don't normally use is to transfer between stores.
Okay.
Joseph saying only your name goes to the ATF. Well, your name and all your social security number, if you provide it, your weight and shit like that go in, your state, and then your yes to the last question about citizenship or whatever, and then yeah, long gun or rifle or whatever the hell it says, long gun or handgun or other.
Now, I just pulled up a copy of 4473, and on the second page, there's a spot where they list the manufacturer, model, serial number, type, and caliber of every firearm that's involved in the transaction. So, yes, it is recorded.
Well, on the page 3 it is, but it's not given to the ATF ever. That's just on
page 3.
When I purchased firearms, they must have filled that out after I purchased it then.
Yeah,
I never filled one out.
Now, all that, page 2 and 3 you're only going to sign the top of page 2, page 2. Everything else after that is done by the staff in-house and doesn't need to be done in front of you, and is rarely done in front of you. And that's more of taking it out of the book, putting it onto that 4473 and verifying, and then like double checking, because that's the kind of shit they get audited on to make sure everything's tidy there. But all that can take place like when they're not busy or like when you're not around, that you don't have to be around.
Okay.
And if you're in a border state with Mexico, then you'll also fill out a form every time you buy more than one handgun. I think everybody has to do that now. But also if you buy more than one centerfire rifle, and then that'll have to go in within 24 hours or they're non-compliant. So there's all kinds of forms that get filled out that nobody talks about. Yeah, you can't sell more than, if you buy more than a couple of pistols in a period of time, there'll be a form that gets filled out. And then states will have individual extra stuff, extra burdens. There'll be pawn stuff that has to be done. Psycho saying it's tempted to get a CNR. We got quite a few people with CNRs. We can should do a show on that periodically and talk about it. Pros and cons. People have had them for a while, see if their opinions change on them. They don't cost very much. They're like $30 for 5 years or something. Pink is saying they don't have to sell, or they don't sell guns, but their store keeps their paperwork for 5 to 10 years, and for tax purposes, and they just have places to put it. I guess that makes sense. One of the places I worked at, it was just a restaurant, and again, they did the same thing. They had like a giant section. Actually, there's a whole other part that was underneath the building. So more like what Dan was talking about. Everything got accumulated into one place, but that was just tax stuff. Like if they needed tax stuff in the store, they just sent some accountant down to dig through boxes and find it.
Yeah, because the IRS rules has changed from, let's say, 30 years ago. Is they used to be able to go back as far as they wanted. And I think for investigational purposes, they still can as far as looking. But as far as being able to prosecute, that has been capped.
It's probably just a cover your butt thing, right? Like if you've got the receipts, then you can validate what you did or whatever.
Yeah, and they can say, clearly we can prove that for the past, 18 years this has been done. But, since we legally are capped at, only going back 3 years, we're going to charge you with 3 years worth of whatever. Or 5 years worth of whatever.
So Gunpowder was asking about the CNR, so they already answered you. But so you can get different types of FFLs. There's FFL for pawn shops and gun shops. There's an FFL if you want to build guns. There's an FFL if you want to import guns. And then there's FFLs for the different types of guns. So most FFLs are regular guns and stuff. And then there's the NFA guns, right? The full auto and the short guns and the destructive devices and all kinds of stuff. There's different FFLs to sell those. I think there's a different FFL to manufacture those. But then one of the FFLs is for people that just want to collect guns. So in this country, you can be a licensed collector. And because we have since 1968 prohibitions on interstate gun sales, people that are collectors are able to be licensed and purchase across state lines with their collector's FFL. So that's called a CNR, like they told you, Curio and Relic. And the list of guns that it covers, I think, changes, just like antique cars. Like it's however many, what they say, 50 years old. So there's like kind of a 50-year shadow, and every year more guns are added, I guess, right, to this list. And if the gun is on that list, then you can just buy it, usually pretty cheap, and then across state lines, so you don't have to go through another FFL or whatever. You technically are an FFL. I think the only stipulation is you can't be in business, so you can't be buying these guns and then selling them and that kind of thing. You can buy them to collect, and you keep a bound book just like a regular FFL. And you keep those guns separate from your other guns. And technically, I think the ATF could come by and audit you, but I don't think that's done very often, if at all.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out some of the more details on that. Like even just like if someone lives in an apartment versus living in a home, is one, do you have to live in a dwelling where you actually own it or have a mortgage on it versus rental property?
That'd be a good question.
I mean, and that only comes up because of with the one type they have, or actually many times they have the security requirements. physical security requirements. Where I would think with a CNR, it might be different. It might not be different. I don't know.
Scott's saying the big advantage is you can have them shipped directly to your house, but also like when you travel, you can just buy them when you go there. So it's always neat to see somebody come into like the gun shop that has a CNR because they can, you know, they just shop. Oh, I'll buy this and this and this. Where are you from? Doesn't matter. I got a CNR. Oh, okay, great. Take them home with you.
So, you know, as an example, if I were to go to Tulsa, the gun show, since I don't live in Oklahoma, they would be, and I don't have a CNR, they would be required to send it to an FFL in my state, where I would then fill out a 4473, and then after assuming I cleared it, then I would get the gun.
Yep, exactly. Of course, you'd have to, even if you had a CNR, if you were going to buy like, I don't know, Beretta something or another, blah, 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 you know, that isn't old, then you'd have to go through that same crap. But for old guns, you'd be able to just pick them up, take them home with you. Right. It's neat, but it's also, you know, licensing collectors makes me want to, you know, shake my fist at the sky, yell about infringements and whatnot. Yep. All right, so we've been chatting a bit about FFLs, and now we can dig into some of those stuff in the show here. I guess that was the beginning of it all, was Tiahrt Amendment. So today's the anniversary of that. The Tiahrt Amendment, like Gary said, is from Kansas, I guess, huh?
Yes.
Todd Tiahrt, after his name, added it to the 2003 Federal Appropriations Bill. It was signed into law today in 2003. Subsequently broadened in October with the addition of 2 provisions banning the ATF from requiring gun dealers to inspect their firearm inventories, requiring the FBI to destroy background check data within 24 hours. 2004, it was altered again to limit time access to the gun trace by government officials and to ban the use of such data in firearms license revocations or civil lawsuits. So from what I understand, this is one of these things that exists, and some people love it and some people hate it, and a bunch of people don't care one way or the other. But there are people that think that it's a great thing and people that think it's horrible. I can understand it because you wouldn't want a bad guy to be able to, like organized crime, to be able to go to the ATF and say, which are the gun shops that sell the most guns to bad guys, or like which are the gun shops that are under investigation for doing, you know, bad things. Like, why would you want that to be available to bad guys? Now, I can see a reporter saying, oh, you're trying to hide this information from the public, but it's like, well, you know, it's available to cops who are in investigating things, but it's not open to the general public because it's like, do you really need to know where the guns are, like who the bad guns are?
And it creates a situation like what happened in New York, where a reporter did ask for that information and then published it in the paper of local gun owners who were registered. And now, you know, bad guys can simply literally open up the paper and say, gee, at 123 Main Street, there's a gun in that house. It might be worth my while. Or it might not be worth my while. You know, depending on what type of criminal it is, and how desperate they are.
And then as far as the FBI destroying the background check data, I just don't like the FBI having stuff. I mean, nothing about that seems like it'd be beneficial. Like knowing who bought guns or why, I don't, and just, we already literally just talked about seeing the metal cargo containers that they've had to add to West Virginia in order to hold files. That means that there's at least somebody who has to go out there and search through them and look through them. And you know, I don't even want to think about how many people are on that staff. So you create bureaucracy every time you give them another responsibility like this. And I'm not a big fan of big government. I just can't see what any of this is going to benefit other than to create bureaucracy and create precedent for, you know, more reason why guns are bad or whatever. Like, look, we're doing all this and we still got murders. Like, look how bad guns are. Look how much we do and we're still got murders.
Yeah, because it's never enough. We just need more. Of course, anybody with half a brain knows what more means.
Well, yeah, they do something that doesn't do anything and then say, oh, it didn't work, we need more. But yeah, exactly. Like, quit doing this stuff. So I can see where it's a good countermeasure, but I guess free press and just freedom of information, transparency in government. I'm not a big fan of creating hidden bureaucracies either. And that's sort of what this does, is it protects some of the bureaucracy, but it's tough to demand transparency on law enforcement.
And once you give government something, it's almost impossible to ever get it back. And such as the strongly suspected idea that they've never thrown away any of this information, from 68.
But the fact that, and I'm speaking from somebody who has worked in the records management field over 20 years, the fact that they're maintaining a bunch of paper records means that they haven't bothered to digitally capture any of this information into a database. Otherwise, they'd have no reason to keep the paper files.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's from the 1972 or whatever it is privacy thing that said they can't. They are not allowed to digitize and scan and keep records of us.
But some people think they are anyway, but I don't see it that they are. They can't be.
Well, I know they are. I mean, they do. So they do audits on people. They do traces. So there's gun shops have an FFL. The provisions of the license, the FFL is a license. The provisions of that license say that the enforcement and investigation units have access to your files, which is what you're keeping them for. So you will get audited periodically, period. That's part of the stipulation of having a license. But then they'll do periodic inspections or random audits for no reason at all, or because they want to, or whatever. That's not your business. They're going to do audits whenever they want. But then additionally, they'll run traces. And sometimes they'll just call you and say, Trace, tell us about this gun. And it's up to you to go through your records, and within a certain amount of time that you have, there's a time frame. You don't just get to say, when I feel like it, I'll call you back. You go through those paper records and find what they want, and you report it back to them. But they'll also come in sometimes. Agents will come in and say, we're going to go through your stuff. We need to go find something. We're looking for something, and that's what you have that stuff for. And that's when I've seen, or maybe not seen with my own eyes, but I've definitely heard of scanners coming out and people scanning, or agents scanning document 4473s and shit for that. Pursuit of law or pursuit of a criminal investigation, though, is not the same as we're going to come in and scan every one of your 4473s for the last 20 years and just spend, how long would that take? Days and days and days? I mean, what the hell? Everybody knows how long a scanner takes to run, and they got 3 pages on each 4473. Do some tiny bit of math, and it would take you forever, even if you had 3 agents with scanners. But yeah, they definitely do scan, and I don't know, they put that into let's say, investigation of a gun or a bad guy or something. Does all that get thrown away? Does it just stay in the evidence for that case? Does it get put into a bigger pile so that they have some accumulation of 4473 scanned or something for some reason? I don't know if we get that answer from anybody but ATF.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think there are many what I'll call black holes of information within government. I mean, that's simply one that concerns us here, but it's not the only one. And I don't want to change the show in a different direction. It's just, I think it raises an important point.
Well, another important point is that Pink jumped in here. So thanks for jumping in.
Yep, thanks for the invite. I was going to say, I mean, just from the Snowden case, it goes to show how, what they keep track of, and the secrets and everything else. So.
And since there's no, since government, unlike anything else, there's no incentive to do better or to do a better job. There's no incentive to do things like, oh, wait a minute, we got to get rid of those documents. At the end of today, we forgot to do that yesterday. Let's hurry up and jump on it. There's no encouragement to actually follow the rules, other than, well, we didn't do them last week, we didn't do them the month before, we didn't do them the year before. In fact, we have never done them in the entire history of my career. Why should I start now? Because I might get in trouble and lose my retirement.
Yeah, and there's no consequences, and they have other tasks. Then,
So things that are not being done properly, especially if it's been some time has passed, there's almost an encouragement to say nothing.
Let's see. So they're talking about on the gun channel side. Pants is saying his local newspaper was printing names and addresses of the new CCW license recipients for a while. I don't know where Pants is. Where's Pants? Io?
No, he's in. I thought he was in Michigan. No, he might be in Cleveland. Yeah, he might be in Ohio.
They know they did that in New York, though, and relatively saying why. And I think the reason they do that, right, is because they think that they're shaming gun owners or somehow like outing them or something. Like think by pointing them out publicly that they're somehow doing something good for the community, right? But I mean, how many different ways is that stupid to print the names of people that apply for or that I guess got their CCWs?
Right.
Yeah, Ohio.
The whole purpose of a CCW is so that people don't know you have it because you're concealing it. And here they are letting everybody know that this person's out there walking around possibly with a firearm.
I mean, I don't know who would read that or whatever. I guess, that article, I guess somebody who still gets the newspaper or that sees that or whatever. But so I guess they're hoping that people are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you at school or work or church or whatever because I read in the newspaper that you got a gun. But bad guys don't read the newspaper. Now they know who has a permit. They probably know who's got a gun, right? But then don't they also probably know who don't? They're going to list all the people that probably have them. I don't know. Just seems like dumb to make a list of all the people that don't.
This goes to what I said probably about 25 minutes ago, or not, I forget how long ago, in regards to that reporter in New York that actually published the forget if they were the CCW holders in his town.
I think he had to own it was like the FOIDs, right? It wasn't even CCW. I think it was just gun owners.
Yeah, so people then knew who did, and more importantly, who didn't have a gun in their house.
Well, the thing with the New York one, they posted a Google map with pins of the people.
Right. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I mean, they actually showed you, hey, this house has a gun, this house has a gun, this house has a gun. So all bad guys had to do is just pull up the map, that picture of the map, and say, oh, let's hit this house, and this house.
Let's go get guns at these houses, and then we'll use those guns at all these houses that don't have guns.
Yep.
Well, and if they made a list of these people have red cars, people would get pissed, right? And if they made a list of these people like this pastime, people would get pissed, right? It'd be an invasion of privacy. Why is the government even aware of this? So I guess it's a misperception that this is somehow for the public good or for the public safety or something.
Right.
I say the answer to that is consequences. So if it's happening, then I think, who was it? Didn't New York publish somebody published the name and address of everybody who published the newspaper or something like that? They did an eye for an eye or whatever. I think somebody published the people who were the publishers of that newspaper, and then they had a big fit about it.
Can't remember.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened. This was a county newspaper, he's saying. Because they're just saying, well, he didn't say it here. He's just chatting on the gun channel side. All right, well, that's a lot of dead air. So, I was going to look through this list. We keep getting tied up with the damn Tiahrt Amendment. It's also the anniversary of Dragunov. So, Dragunov, the SVD, was born today in 1920. So, you know anybody else who was born in 1920?
Nope.
That's like when our grandparents were being born. So,
my dad was born in 23.
Huh?
My dad was born in 23, not my grandparents.
When was your parents born, Dana?
The early to late 30s.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm shifted a little bit from you guys. My grandparents were this 20s era, and then my parents were like the 40s. So maybe a little bit different. But he could have been some of our parents, I guess, or some of our grandparents. He only died in 91, so we could have technically met the guy. But SVD, a couple other things. I think an Olympic gun, if I remember right. And then a whole bunch of other machine guns and stuff. So Russian. I thought we had more stuff in here. I guess we don't. So I don't have a gun shop or anything today. But I've been adding some more stuff into the list, so we'll see some of that coming up in the future. Let's see if anybody's saying anything here. Seven Wonders. Grandma was born in 13. Oh, Jimmy Stewart flew his last combat mission in Vietnam on this day. Pretty cool. Did you guys see that the guy died yesterday, who is the sailor from that World War II picture where he's kissing that nurse?
Yeah.
That's shitty. He was 95 years old, right?
I didn't realize he was still alive. That was the more shocking thing.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, that is kind of odd to see. But he probably was real young, huh? Gotten home from the war being a kid.
I mean, in some ways, you know, it's instead of just assuming that all these people are still alive, it's kind of, at least for me, it shifted over to where the vast majority of these people have passed. I mean, there's so few people left.
Yeah.
Where when we were growing up, there were so many still here. The vast majority were still here that had made it.
Let's see. You guys are saying stuff. I don't know if I'm missing it, so I'm going to quit trying to read it over there. I'm either missing chunks of conversations that are going on over there, or I have it on live, so I'm not missing anything. But we'll head over here, and well, I don't know. Do we want to keep going, or are we done? We've been going for about an hour. I was going to say, this is my post from Instagram earlier, since I don't really have a gun in the day. So, Dano, have you ever seen one of these SOE chest rigs?
Not in person, but I've seen videos of people wearing them. The ones that are real high up, where they start like at almost the bottom of your sternum and go up to just like 2 inches below your chin or so.
Well, I guess it depends on where you wear it, but there's not much to it. It's just 2 mag pouches and this big square pouch that holds a first aid kit. And then it's got some little loopy things. I jammed a bayonet into this one. I've got a tourniquet on this side. There's a little pouch over here, I believe, with a mutt, the Leatherman mutt, little multi-tool. And then there should be a flashlight in there. I think I have the flashlight inside of this thing. A second flashlight inside of this thing, and then I think I used to have something else. But anyway, so it's pretty useful, and it's not very big, and I can put 2 AK mags in each one, so that's 5 AK mags if I leave one in the gun, which I usually do. And then this is my German mock-up of a G kit, so it's a Romanian G kit, 7.62x39, and it's got the German furniture on it, so that it becomes basically an MPI KS, I believe. And I could put all this into a little gym bag looking thing, so I can carry it around in and out of hotels and in and out of the van and everything, and I don't think anybody would ever pay it a second look. And then I keep it with a VTAC sling on it, and with the mag in it, with the mag full but nothing chambered, and it on safe. And then that way the bolt can't come back and chamber around, you know, inadvertently, and whenever I need to use it, I just take it back off safe, rack it, and it's good to go. And I don't know, this has been my go-to rifle for going around traveling for a long time. I've got that that chest rig in 12. So I guess it's probably been the last 7 years I've been taking this thing with me in the cop car and now the van. So I don't know. Do we want to chat about that, or was that just a little thing?
So how old is that gun?
The gun itself is probably from 6 or 7. I put it together in 6 or 7, maybe.
No, I mean, oh, okay. So it's not a.
It's a cheap kit. So this was I probably paid $50 for this kit, and it was torch cut Romanian G, which was the Romanian National Guard or something. They were purpose-built semi-automatics for the Romanian Special Guard or something, and a lot of those got chopped up in the early, right after the ban, and they were really inexpensive, economical kits. And what's nice about them is they were basically like middle of the road European sizing, so you could build them into anything, any European gun. So it could be a Bulgarian, it could be a German, it could be a Russian, it could be an Egyptian, it could be anything you could buy furniture for almost. You could make it Polish, except for Yugoslavians and Chinese, anything could be built off a G kit, or anything that you could get furniture for at least. And I like this German furniture. So the German furniture I've got on it is probably, you know, before the 74. It would have been still when they were using the 39, so probably 50s or 60s, probably 60s. And then the kit itself, I mean, I don't remember. I think most of my kits I tried to get right around the early 70s, so they were as old as me. And I, like I say, I put it together probably in like 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. I put together a lot of guns in the days. And I
assume the G just simply stands for German.
No, it was a G was a little orange G engraved on the other side of the rear sight, right here, and it was just a G that was engraved to indicate that these were purposely built semi-auto guns, because you know most armies are building everything in full auto, so they put a G on them so that they'd know that these were for their special guard, like their version of the, I think it was their version of like the National Guard. Like volunteer people who would like do stuff at like parades or like, you know, be people, traffic cops and stuff. They'd give them this AK, but it was a semi-auto for whatever reason. So whenever they retired all those guns from Romania, they chopped them up with torches and then sold them to us as parts kits. And everybody had these. And at the end of the assault weapons ban, these were like the most common parts kit to get. You could get them very inexpensively by the dozens and dozens. And like I say, it was just a really medium-sized kit, so you could make any kind of gun out of it. But the G had to do with the origin of it from the Guard, and because it was on the rear sight block and it was engraved, and then it had some like orange color fill in it, you could get rid of the orange color fill with a wire brush or something if you wanted, but you weren't getting rid of that G. So the guns that you see are obvious because they got this, like, it looks like somebody took an engraving tool on steroids and like hand whittled a G in the side of it. Really crappy looking. It doesn't look professional at all. It looks really shitty. But every single one of them are like that.
So what was the reasoning for the G being so prolific as compared to the other Eastern Blocs? Was it because of the folding the Eastern Bloc Germany in with Germany?
No. It was because it was semi-auto. So you ever seen the Red 9s? The Lugers that were rechambered in 9mm?
No, I have not.
Oh, a bunch of Nazis decided to rechamber their old shitty guns into 9mm shitty guns, and they would carve in the side a big-ass 9 in the wood grip and then fill it in with their nail polish. And those are called like the 9, what are they, Lugers or Mausers? I don't know what they are. People that like German guns will know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's similar. They just wanted to designate the gun so from 6 feet away you didn't pick it up thinking it was a full auto, I guess. Maybe if they painted the stocks white on a bunch of National Guard guns for some reason, because they were semi-autos, it would be that kind of thing. It's just that because of where it was on the gun, it stayed on the kit. No matter what you built it like, very little you could do except for Bondo it. Like you couldn't, I don't have a picture of it, but you know, on the others, imagine somebody engraving a big G. Like I say, unless you fill it with something and paint it, you're going to always see that G. So even if you made it look Russian, it's got a big G on it. You make it look Polish, got a big G on it. This one's German, got a big G on it. I mean, when you see a Romanian gun with that donkey dick on the front,
yeah,
That's a G kit. That's the other characteristic of those kits is they had that vert grip thing on the front here that's made out of wood, and nobody liked them. The reason there's so many of those because they're all off the G kits. All the Romanian guns had that, or most of them did, but the G kits particularly that we got swamped with all had that handguard. So nobody used it. Everybody pulled it off and sold them by the dozens. And then 10 years, 20 years later, everybody's like, oh, those things are cool. And they put them back on again.
So were there G kits from other Eastern Bloc countries as well, or no?
No, that was just strictly a Romanian guard. And it was just like, at the time, they got imported a lot. Like somebody gave them a good deal to every importer or something because everybody had them.
Okay.
But AK stuff happens like that. It just, big stuff comes in waves.
Yeah, they're not making them one at a time anymore when they have 100,000 available.
Well, and it was probably like when they got new guns. So we got new ones because of some budget cut or whatever, and now we don't need these anymore. Or we've got 2 versions newer than this. Get rid of the oldest version, and then chop them up and send them to us, and boom, we get them flooded in with them.
Did the move to 5.45 have an impact in that regards?
Germany never went to 5.45, so not for that. Or wait, Romania barely went to 5.45 either. But yeah, they had to, right? Whenever they went to the big countries that went to 5.45, probably, well, no, not really. Because when they got 5.45, it was still the 70s. We were still right in the middle of the Cold War. They just put their 7.62 by 39 on ice. It wasn't until we started getting stuff in the 90s and 2000s that they started letting go of anything, really. So, no, I don't think so. All they did is probably restructure their own internal, whatever, quartermaster crap, right? They probably didn't use them as much anymore, but they didn't get rid of them.
Yeah, I think the availability of the communist guns in general that we've just experienced, and we're now, at some point going to be trailing down. I think we're already somewhat trailing down as far as the chapter in guns of the communist guns and what we've experienced in our lifetime will never happen again, foreseeably.
No way, you can't. No, there's no way. When nobody's building that kind of inventories anymore.
Right.
So I figured people dig the rig. I like it. Somebody was angry, was asking about his crazy piece of shit, metal. I don't know what the fuck. That's the biggest scam on the country that I'm aware of, is putting metal on yourselves as armor. But he was putting the pictures of his Condor chest rig with his metal plates in there, and asking, what people like. Did you see his Instagram post?
I follow it, but I didn't see that one. Did he post it to gun channels specifically?
No, he posted it to his channel, and I don't know what he tagged it with. I don't pay attention. I just follow his channel.
I just assume that most gun channels people put in the hashtag gun channels.
I don't know if he does the hashtag gun channels very much. I just follow him because we know each other, but I don't know if he considers himself a gun channels person so much anymore.
Oh.
But anyhow, he was asking something about running with a chest rig or running with Alice gear. What the fuck would Alice be? A harness, I guess? Chest harness. And I said ceramic plates with chest rig, and that's basically my chest rig. So that little tiny chest rig on top of ceramic plates, so that I can run plates by themselves or I can run the chest rig by itself. But I'm not a fan of putting your mag pouches on the chest rig so that your chest rig is sort of dedicated, always running and gunning.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I like to always scold everybody for the fucking metal plates because I fucking hate those things. Those are targets, not fucking things to put on your body.
Well, there's a philosophy there, and I guess in addition to the individual, as far as because you're giving up speed versus mobility.
Mm. Well, no, I agree.
Put extra weight on somebody.
I agree. The plates are unnecessarily heavy. I mean, Angry though is all getting into shape now, so he probably loves the challenge of the heaviness. But no, I do agree with you. I mean, you don't want extra weight on you for no extra reason. It's just ridiculous. But the main thing I don't like the metal plates for is when you get hit with a rifle with a metal plate, it's just going to sprawl or whatever, explode right into your chin and face. That's why you want armor, is to not get hurt. So I don't want to not get hurt in one area, but have it immediately hurt me in another area and put me out, if not kill me. I want it to absorb into that fucking plate. Ceramic absorbs the rounds.
Into your neck and underneath your chin are two most sensitive parts that it would hit. Going down and hitting the outside of your thighs would be one thing, but getting hit, in the neck or the throat, so it's over.
Yeah. You don't know when you're going to get hit. So anyway, I mean, maybe on the back, but still, they're just so heavy that, yeah, get some ceramic. If you're going to go armor, get ceramic.
Yeah. I would agree.
Do more, see if I don't know what they're talking about out there now. Yep, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm on live chat too. I just can't keep track of all conversations that are going on with what. So I'll quit trying to read the YouTube side.
I hear about a guy talking about it. Says, I know you can own legally grenade launchers, which are just like the attachment on the AKs where it just shuts off the gas system, and then you shove a blank in there, and they make grenades that are specifically to be shot out of the barrel of a firearm. And the Americans had them too. It's not like it was unique to the AK platform.
You're talking about like the little spigot you put on as a muzzle device, and then you cram a grenade over that, like as like on the end of the barrel, and then you shoot a blank.
Yeah. But you would rotate the gas to turn the gas off, like on. But it was model specific as to whether they could do that or not.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably still shoot the grenade even if you can't turn off the gas. It's just not going to get as much oomph or whatever. It'll still probably work though. But you're right.
I mean,
the U-boat shut off in the gas block.
I'd want to test fire one of the proper weight before. I mean, not that because you'd have to register each individual one, and then as you fire it, you destroy it.
No, but I got a rubber one, so you get the training ones, and then those things cost $50, $70 depending on where you get them, maybe less if you know somebody. And then they're like they're the same shape and everything as the grenade would be, so they look like a little rocket looking thing, except that instead of having any kind of ordnance, they're just full of some kind of counterweight, like a big rubber plastic thingy. It's kind of like plastic with a rubber tip, and then the fins kind of screw on the bottom, and they're just like the real ones except they're plastic. And then usually if you buy them like brand new, you get like this kit that has like 5 of the whole things and then like a whole bunch of extra fins. And if you buy it separate, then depending on how you buy it, like I bought mine just as one thing, but sometimes you'll buy, like if somebody divides up the kit, they'll sell you like a rocket or a dummy grenade, I guess, and then 3 or 4 fins, like whatever the version, whatever the portion of them was out of the extras. So I don't know how often you break fins, but I guess I'll find out. But they're again, they're hot and cold. Sometimes they're all over the place and they're cheap, and then other times you have to pay $90 because you can't find them anywhere. But you can get those dummy grenades, like Dano said, you made them for everything. So I've got one that that I think is from like a 30-06, so probably from like a Garand or a Springfield or something.
Yeah, in fact, as you were talking about it, I kept thinking it's like, that's something that they could incorporate into some of the shooting sports but to draw some more of the AK crowd in.
Oh, yeah, and then I think they're also we're talking about the underbarrel, like an M79 or the different GP25s, the underbarrel grenade launchers. Those you can get either as a grenade launcher in 40 millimeter, and that'll cost you $200 as a tax stamp,
right,
to transfer it to you. And then, like Dano said, every projectile is going to be a destructive device, and it's going to cost you money. You're going to destroy it, or you can, and those are almost impossible to even obtain. Or you can buy chalk or something else, and still pretty expensive because nobody sells 40 millimeter. So people buy 37 millimeter versions, which are not regulated at all, and are you can buy again things that have sort of like ordnance. You can get different flares and smoke and chalk and anyway things that are not ordnance so much as like inert marking
Right.
or
It'd be
indicator.
like a flare sort of thing.
Yeah, like indicators to show you where they come down, or like you're saying, like a flare with a parachute or something, where it's like designed to launch a flare into the air. Anyway, so there's those kind of things too, and those are range in cost from little to very expensive. Certainly can be fun though. And then there's the things that are like that shoot cans. I haven't got my hands on one of them ever, but I really want one. They're like an AR upper, but then they have like a giant thing on them that like a soda can will fit into. Or
Yeah, the can cannon from X products.
Yeah, there's like at least 3 companies that sell those now, though, or at least that have sold them. I think because I know
saw the video; it looked pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and like the differences are some of them use blanks, and some of them. No, I guess they all use blanks, but some of them some of them just use primers or something. I don't know. There's some differences between them, but yeah, I think shooting a tennis ball would be the funnest thing. All right, well, and then we got dead air again. So seems like we're having to revive this thing a little bit too much. So we'll definitely end it this time. I want to thank Gizzard and Dano and Pink for jumping in here. And we will, let's see, we got, today is Tuesday. We already talk about tomorrow?
Is what?
Did we already talk about shows coming up tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday, so it'll be
Obnoxious Chat tomorrow evening.
Oh, no,
tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah. So yeah, Obnoxious's chat. We'll be talking about the Tulsa trip for everybody from Gun Channels going to Tulsa. Yankee's got his chat. Matt will have his diversity chat. Clover will have his nerd chat, and then we'll be back here probably late tomorrow for this one. And then Friday will be a big deal, really big deal, biggest deal you've ever seen. And also, Budget has a show and Foul Territory this week.
Yep.
You sound so thrilled, Gary.
Well, haven't planned out the show yet, but it's always fun to do, so I'm looking forward to it. Always do.
So Pants is saying Cannon takes Fetch with the Dog to a new level. I'm thinking too, like some kind of neat like glider or something where you can shoot it up into the air and then glide it down remote control or something.
Well, they get those neat grappling hooks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That'd be neat to do.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for watching and listening. And back next time.